In DevOps, there are primarily three kind of job profiles. The first is Devops Engineer. The full form of a DevOps engineer is Developer Operations Engineer, which means you don't necessarily write code, but everything that it takes to make sure the code is running properly in the production without issues, you take care of that. Which means you're responsible for deployments. You're responsible for making sure the right kind of Docker images exist if they have to exist. You have to make sure the machines on which the codes are running are configured properly. You also have to make sure if something goes wrong, then you are there to troubleshoot. And because you have to do all of this, in a way, you have to be very good with Linux internals. You have to be great with scripting. You have to have a great understanding of Dockers. If, let's say, your company uses microservices, then you need to have good understanding of Kubernetes, and so forth. So that's your vertical number one. Second vertical is cloud engineer, which means you need to know everything that a DevOps engineer knows, but certain companies either run all of their code on, let's say, a cloud that they themselves have, which is called on-premise machines, or they run it on a existing cloud provided by, let's say, Amazon, which is AWS, or Microsoft, which is Azure, or let's say Google Cloud. In small companies, usually engineers double up to play the role of DevOps and cloud engineers. However, in larger companies where the deployment size is large, you are actually using a lot of cloud machines, there you might need specialized cloud engineers who are responsible for doing everything that a DevOps engineer should do, plus also making sure that you're utilizing the cloud in the right way. You're keeping the cost at what is required to be the cost. And you're using the right components of the cloud to, let's say, get things done effectively. And then the final vertical is site reliability engineer, which is obviously a SRE or a site reliability engineer knows everything that a DevOps engineer does. Plus, they're also involved in system design discussions. So for example, if there is an outage at Facebook, an SRE would be responsible for making sure to work with the engineering teams to figure out what was the root cause. Are there, let's say, long-term or mid-term structural changes required or system design changes required to make sure these outages never happen? They are also responsible for setting up the entire monitoring framework, apart from, let's say, setting up the machines and the right configuration of machines. So your SREs are almost everything that a DevOps is. Plus, they're also very, very good with system design and working with engineering teams in a lot of detail. Hence, what you'll also find is in terms of compensation, SREs are paid typically the same as a corresponding software engineer. An SRE2 would be paid the same as, let's say, corresponding SD2. DevOps is paid slightly lower than an SRE. And cloud engineers are again paid probably somewhere between a DevOps engineer and an SRE. Now, out of these three verticals, what are the things that you could be aiming for? Now, that depends on what you are today. Firstly, if you're a beginner today, then you could look at starting your career as a DevOps engineer, primarily because between software engineering and DevOps engineering, probably DevOps engineering is less complex to begin with, which means you don't need to probably be as good at coding. You could pick one scripting language like Python and you can get started with that. And your day-to-day is, again, not as complex as, let's say, building a full-fledged feature. As long as you understand systems, you might be able to get by. If you're an existing DevOps developer or engineer, in that case, you have two paths. You could either aim to get into DevOps engineering jobs at better companies. So, for example, a lot of product companies would look at even DevOps engineer being good at coding, being good at DSA, maybe understanding system design to a certain extent. So you could look at that path, or you could look at upgrading to an SRE, where again, DSA, system design, all of that is very, very important. So those are the paths that exist for you. In fact, with time, because almost everybody is moving to cloud, probably also understanding the key components of cloud and how that plays into the life cycle of a DevOps is also very, very important. In a way, at the program in Scalar, we have all of this. There's a single program that covers whatever is required to become a DevOps engineer, or a cloud engineer or a SRE, along with a optionality to maybe study a little more and also have the optionality of getting into software engineering jobs. This is probably the most comprehensive curriculum for software engineering that you will find, which we will also discuss later, with enough hands-on experience to make sure when you go and join a job, you find yourself at comfort. One of the other things to keep in mind is that while you can study all of this on your own, finding all this dispersed content and staying motivated for almost a year, because this is going to take time, is extremely, extremely difficult and very rare to happen. Obviously, if you're in a formal structured program where everybody is talking about what is being discussed in the class every single day, staying consistent almost for a year, getting to the final outcome of becoming a DevOps engineer becomes much, much easier. Your probabilities increase multifold. I hope that gives you an overview of the DevOps career paths, and I hope you consider Scalar as one of your consideration while you're thinking of a DevOps career. Thank you.